Welcome back to the Awesome Agents podcast. Okay, so today we are talking about IBM. And honestly, this is one of those stories where the headline alone made me do a double take.
Yeah, IBM shares dropped about 11% in a single day. Some reports had it as high as 13 or 14% intraday. That is a massive move for a company this size.
And the trigger was Anthropic announcing that Claude Code can now automate COBOL modernization. For people who don't follow legacy tech, why does that matter so much?
So, COBOL is this programming language from the 1960s that still runs an insane amount of critical infrastructure. We are talking 95% of ATM transactions in the US, 80% of in person financial transactions globally. There are roughly 220 billion lines of COBOL still in production.
220 billion lines. And there is basically a shrinking pool of people who actually understand it, right?
Exactly. Most COBOL developers are retired or retiring. That scarcity has been IBM's moat for decades. They run the mainframes, they sell the consulting services to maintain and modernize the code. It is a subscription style business worth billions in recurring revenue.
So Anthropic comes along and says, hey, our AI can do the hard part. Walk me through what Claude Code actually does here.
The key insight is really clever. Legacy modernization projects historically stall, not because rewriting is hard, but because understanding the old code is where all the cost is. Claude Code automates that analysis phase.
The part that human consultants bill hundreds of millions for.
Right. It does dependency mapping across thousands of lines, traces data flows, identifies which modules are safe to modernize first, even generates tests to verify the migrated code. Anthropic is saying this turns multi year consulting engagements into something that takes quarters.
Quarters instead of years. I can see why the market freaked out. But is the AI actually good enough to handle something this complex?
That is the right question. COBOL systems are notoriously tangled implicit dependencies, shared data structures, decades of patches on patches. I think for straightforward code bases, it probably works well. For the really gnarly stuff, you still need human expertise. But even automating 60 or 70% of the analysis work would devastate the consulting revenue model.
And this was not the only bad news for IBM that day.
No, it was a triple hit. Before the COBOL news even dropped, IBM was already down 4% on Trump's new 15% global tariff announcement. And they had already lost 15 federal contracts worth about $100 million due to DOGE cutbacks.
So tariffs, government contract cancellations, and now their core consulting business is under threat from AI. That is brutal.
The numbers are historic. IBM is down 26% in February alone. Bloomberg says it is on track for its worst monthly decline since at least 1968. That is not a typo, 1968.
Wow. And it was not just IBM that got hit, right?
No, Accenture, Cognizant, other IT services firms with big legacy modernization practices all declined. The entire legacy modernization market, which is about 58% services revenue, is getting repriced. Investors are calculating how much of that consulting work AI can absorb.
There is a real irony here, though. IBM has spent years positioning itself as an AI leader. Watson, Watsonix, the whole thing.
That is the painful part. Claude Code is not competing with IBM's AI products, it is competing with IBM's consultants. The AI revolution IBM has been trying to lead is now cannibalizing the business that actually pays the bills.
So what is the takeaway? Is this a buying opportunity like the retail investors on StockTwits are saying, or is this a fundamental shift?
I think the question is no longer whether AI will disrupt enterprise consulting, it is how fast. Even if Claude Code is not perfect today, the trajectory is clear. Every quarter, the models get better, and every quarter, the value proposition of a 5 year consulting engagement gets harder to justify.
The AI ate the consultants, not the code, the consultants. That is a sentence I did not expect to say in 2026.
And honestly, it probably will not be the last industry where that happens.
Great point to end on. That is it for today's episode. If you want the full breakdown, check out the article on awesomeagents.ai. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.